standpoint as well as a riding standpoint. We found that there wasn't enough information on the web for people to really kind of learn, you know, all about horsemanship. So we developed a YouTube channel as well as which you guys can subscribe to. It's free, as well as the private group, as well as our page and our clients only group. The difference between the private group and our clients only group is the private group, we put out general information and, you know, about some general topics, and we, on the client group, we go into more in-depth detail about specific topics, as well as we do monthly coaching calls as well as online lessons. So it's a pretty great program, and it's a lot more affordable and easier to do than you would think. So yeah, just wanted to preface that there. And then Cindy and I were working together today, and she brought up a really good topic, and I'll let her get started with explaining to you what's going on with her horse and what she's doing and what we're going to talk about. So.
Okay, so I've lost you guys. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yep, we sure can.
Sorry, Kristen. I'm having trouble over here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So I have a few things going on with RC that I've been dealing with for a while. He has neuropathy in his right shoulder that is irritated by wearing a saddle, and it differs down into the pectoral area for him between his, kind of where the cinch goes. But the other thing that he also does is every year about this time of the year, he has chronic diarrhea, where it just is like liquid coming out of his butt, and it seems to be worse in the evening than in the morning. And if I put him on electrolytes, that will clear it up. It seems to get better as we get through the summer and fall starts, but then he'll get back into it right when spring starts. So that's been an ongoing, he's been doing that. Geez, when Kristen and I started talking about it, he's been having that going on since we pretty much started him under saddle. Didn't really put that together until she and I started having the conversation. The other thing that he has done for a long time, and I've had talks with veterinarians and equine dentists and things like that, and I've always thought it was his teeth, but he will jet his head down towards the ground and off to the left a little bit, and then he'll move his jaw, his upper and lower jaw, kind of back and forth and yawn a lot. He mainly does it when we're getting ready for feeding, definitely breakfast. Again, talking with Kristen today, I noticed it in the evening as well. And on the trail ride, for the last 3 times we've trail ride, he's actually, when we go from a trot to a canter, he actually has started bucking, which is totally uncharacteristic for him. And occasional teeth grinding. So a lot of different things going on, but I was telling Kristen, because she's got so many horses at her place, I was telling her about his intermittent diarrhea and what does she do? Is there something better than electrolytes, or what should I do? And she had suggested that I entertain doing a ulcer guard treatment for him, because a lot of what he's doing sounds like he's got ulcers. So this is his 3rd day of being on ulcers guard, but let me back up. Last week, he had it really bad, diarrhea really bad, so I put him on electrolytes. And what I noticed when I finally went and had a lesson with Kristen that week, he was a lot more calm. And the diarrhea does get better, but if I stop the electrolytes, it comes right back. And so he's been on gastric guard for
And he's on probiotics too, right, Cindy?
he's
I
on
think.
probiotics. He's on electrolytes that he gets in the morning with his grain and applesauce. And he's been on that for about 10 days now. And then he's been on Ulcer guard, not Ulcer guard. I keep saying Ulcer guard, but it's actually gastric guard. Ulcer guard is what you do after gastric guard. And today he had a lesson, and even though he had moments of his neuropathy bothering him, he was so much happier and so much calmer. So Kristen and I thought today would be a really good time to talk to everybody about ulcers, because so many of our horses have them. The more that I work with Kristen, who has a lot of horses coming through her life, so she doing a lot of different things, she sees a lot of different symptoms. And what's interesting, you guys, is there's way more symptoms that our horses are showing that are ulcer related that we're not aware of. Sorry. Sorry, guys. That they're not aware of, that we relate to, you know, behavioral or other issues. So I'm going to let Kristen take it from here, because she's got a whole list of different kind of symptoms that you'll see in your horses that we would not recognize. And if we can understand our horses have ulcers and we can help them, the first and foremost is we're going to make them feel better, and they're going to live longer, and we're going to help avoid colic. But the other thing is they're going to be happier and better partners for us. So Kristen, go ahead and share with us what are some of the symptoms you're seeing. I named some of them, what I saw with RC.
So one of the things I want to mention is, well, several things, I guess. You know, we can start with the different types of colic as well. So there are two types of colic, because, you know, ulcers can lead to colic as well, right? There's gas colic, and then there's dehydration colic. And just want to get that off the bat, we can explain that to you. So I want you to think about those in the back of your mind. So there are symptoms of ulcers can range greatly from horse to horse. It can be girthiness, right? Typical girthiness that you think of when you're cinching a horse up and they bite their sides, or the horse might take a swift kick and kick underneath their belly. You might not even think much of it. It could be just once or twice. Laying down after they're eating, or eating a little bit, walking away from their food and coming back, right? You know, that could be normal behavior, but that could also be a sign of stomach upset, right? Why would it be that when your horse starts eating that they feel that they need to go and lay down, right? Halfway through. I mean, I had an owner tell me, oh, I don't know, a year or two ago, well, my horse has just always done that. And I made the comment, I said, well, just because she's always done that doesn't mean that it's right. And so we decided to put her on 2 weeks of Ulcer Guard, or we were going to test it out, see if the behavior went away, because at 2 weeks, generally that's when you start to see healing. And beyond that is, you know, it increases the healing, right? So at around roughly 20 days, that behavior stopped completely. And she thought, oh man. So, you know, just because your horse has always done something doesn't mean it's right. Sensitivity around the flanks, that could be a sign of hindgut ulcers or colonic ulcers. So there's many different types of ulcers. There's front gut and hindgut, and there's also glandular and non-glandular ulcers. And we'll talk about those in a little bit as well. Random lamenesses can also be a sign of ulcers, believe it or not, because what happens is if one side of the stomach is hurting, they might appear short on that side. Bucking can be a sign of ulcers. If your horse, you know, if you're trotting along and your horse doesn't want to go into the canter, well, think about it. They've really got to compress their stomach and bring everything underneath. Well, that makes that acid slosh up in their stomach, right? And so the faster they're going, the more it's going to slosh. And you want to think of an ulcer as like a burn, because that's what it is. It's like a scab that you've kind of peeled it off of, and so when the acid comes up, it burns. And so that's why bucking can come into play. Spookiness. They can become really spooky. And part of that is because randomly they'll go along, the acid splashes up and it hurts, right? So they jump, they go, oh, gonna go to one side or the other. They just want to get away from it. And so randomly spooky horses. I mean, we had one here that was one of his tells. We treated him with ulcer guard and it went away. So, well, this one we scoped, and it was pretty intense. Some of the stuff that we saw in there, and how asymptomatic he really was considering what was going on in his stomach. You have acupuncture points, which I might have mentioned earlier. There's some really good YouTube videos online with professionals that are much better at that than I am. Yawning is a sign. It's a lot of times they'll stretch their neck out, they'll yawn. They're trying to position their body in a way so that it's more comfortable. It's not that they're tired. So if you ever see a horse when they're riding a lot that's yawning a lot, or just standing in their stall yawning, I mean, yeah, it could be tired, but if you see it repeatedly over and over again, that might really be something you want to check out. Grinding their teeth, acting like they're in any sort of pain, right? Seasonal diarrhea, that can be a sign of ulcers. That one's actually pretty interesting, because one of the things that I didn't know until we had a horse that would get impaction colics, right? And we found out that he had ulcers. And when we took him in to go get him scoped, so you have to fast a horse to get him scoped. And they stick a camera down inside, and they actually the camera has water that it sprays on the stomach. And when we sprayed the water on the stomach to clear out any sort of excess food particle, he did the exact same behavior that he always does, that made us lead to think that he had ulcers. He'd take his hind leg up and kick his belly twice. And what was interesting was, I thought, oh my gosh, so no wonder he doesn't want to drink. He doesn't want to drink because every time the water goes down and his stomach hurts, he gets that acidy feeling and it bothers him, right? So a horse that's not a good drinker, if your horse isn't a good drinker, think about it. So along the lines of the diarrhea, one of our veterinarians told me not too long ago that said, sometimes, Kristen, diarrhea isn't just diarrhea or stomach upset. It's actually loose manure moving around an impacted part. So if you think about it, that's probably, Cindy, why the electrolytes help your guy, right? It encourages him to drink more, encourages him to get hydrated more, and then things start moving properly. So if you have an impaction or a slight impaction or fecal balls that are stuck, and you have, hydrated manure, when it hits that, it comes apart, moves around it. So, if you have a horse that has, every time they poop, they have that little bit of runniness afterwards, that can also be a sign, right, that things in the intestine aren't working correctly. Obviously any sort of colic symptoms can also be a sign of ulcers. One of the things I will tell you is that if your horse has been diagnosed with ulcers in the past, you make sure, if you have another colic, episode, that you tell the vet that, because Banamine can make it a lot worse if it's an ulcer problem. So if you get a different vet out, you make sure that they know that you have had ulcer problems in the past. And what they might even do is say, fine, we're going to give Banamine, or we're going to give something else, but instead we're going to put them on ulcer treatment right away. So we just had a horse here that he's had ulcer problems his whole life. He got 4 years old, he had them. and you know, he just had an impaction colic as well. And we really try here from a management standpoint with the ones that we know aren't good drinkers to really make sure that they're hydrated, to work our way around it. So those are some pretty simple, you know, ulcer diagnostic tool, or, you know, or your home diagnostic tools. Uh, Now, as far as treatment goes, there's a whole bunch of different stuff that you can do. So in the scope, you cannot see if there are hindgut ulcers. You just can't. And so a lot of times veterinarians will say, well, we've treated for the front gut, which would be Ulcer Guard or misoprostol. Um, or, oh my gosh, there's another one we use all the time, sucralfate. So Ulcer Guard is a proton inhibitor, which is basically, you want to think of it as like Tagamet. It reduces the amount of acid delivered to the stomach. And so you got to at least do a several week treatment. A lot of times, if you've scoped, they'll say even before they want you to pull them off of it at the end, they want you to rescope at the end if you've had a pretty bad chronic case. We had one horse here that he was actually a BLM Mustang, and I have a friend that works at the BLM, and he looked up for us. He said on average, the body score of the horses that were rounded up when this horse was rounded up was around a 2 or a 3. So our suspicion is that this horse, you know, being starved at some point, and with the way the ulcers looked on the scope, that they were really old. They'd been there a long time. And as a result, we had to treat him for almost 4 months on Ulcer Guard to really get them to clear up. We did Ulcer Guard, and then we did the sucralfate as well. So sucralfate, layman's term, I think it's like Pepto-Bismol. You know, we see that nice commercial where the Pepto-Bismol comes in and it coats the whole stomach. Well, that's kind of what sucralfate does for the whole system. And there's a timing period between Ulcer Guard and sucralfate that you have to give. Every vet has a different recommendation depending on the severity of the case. Now, glandular versus non-glandular ulcers, okay? So those are non-glandular ulcers. Most of the times, you know, Ulcer Guard can treat glandular ulcers, but they're finding now that misoprostol treats glandular ulcers better. And interestingly enough, glandular ulcers are usually seen in foals, not in older horses. I don't know why that is. They're either in foals or horses, I should say, where their saliva, the pH is off. And we had several horses, actually, no, one horse just recently that was treated with misoprostol. And a side effect that I will tell you that we saw in this horse is that he didn't feel well. He looked almost like a sick horse when he was on it. It did clear up the ulcers much faster, I do believe, than just giving straight Ulcer Guard, so it was worth it. A client of ours here said that she had taken it herself because it's also a human drug. And she says, oh, he felt just like I felt on it. I'm like, what? And she goes, sick to my stomach. So just so you know, if your veterinarian does prescribe that to you guys, that if your horse looks dumpy, don't necessarily worry about it so much. That can be a generic side effect of the drug. Doesn't mean your horse is getting sicker. Doesn't mean you shouldn't also tell your vet though. So some people also treat their horses with Tums. I don't use it as a treatment. I think if your horse has had ulcers, and you cleared them up, then it might not be a bad thing before something really strenuous, but it doesn't quite work as well as the big guns go. As far as preventative maintenance or along those lines, or maintenance afterwards, well, for one, never exercise your horse on this empty stomach. Just don't do it. Right? You know, if you're getting your horse in the trailer, make sure the hay bag is full. Make sure they've eaten at least something within the last hour, because that forage helps that stomach, the acid sloshing. So when the acid goes to move around, right, it hits the forage and the forage absorbs it versus it burning the side of the lining, right? Because remember, we're on animals that we're supposed to be eating all day long if we can help it. Honestly, the wild horses don't get that either, but that is the goal. So if you're going to go out and you're going to make them really trot, make them canter, and make them work, make sure they're fed. Make sure their stomachs are full. On top of that, there are 2 products that I know of out there that have good peer-reviewed studies. One of them is Smart GI. It will not heal ulcers, but I shouldn't say will not. It has not been proven to, okay? But they do have good peer-reviewed studies that say that it will keep them away or help keep them away. Another product is Reline. We really like that one. That product actually was originally designed for joints as a joint lubricant, and the stomach benefit was a side advantage to the product. And now they actually found that it's better stomach buffer than it was a joint supplement. So they remarketed it, and I believe it was UC Davis that did the peer-reviewed study on that one, or the third-party study on that one. And we have several horses here that get it every day. And we never did ulcer treatments with those horses, but I saw little signs, the yawning, just maybe some nervous behavior, that type of stuff. So I just said, hey guys, let's just put them on it, because the problem is much bigger than, a preventative solution. So I also recommend to people, even if your horse has not had ulcers, if you're going to put them in a super stressful situation, it's not bad to buy 1 tube of Ulcer Guard, give them a quarter tube the day before, a quarter tube the day of, and a quarter tube the day after. And if you want to use it up, give them the last quarter tube. That just helps them get through it, because no matter what, they are going to be producing more acid. And like I said, it's a little bit of prevention will really help your horse, and it'll help you guys in the long run. Another symptom that I forgot to mention is that a lot of horses won't want to stride out, because in the walk and the trot, and because they have to reach forward more than they do in the canter. And when they reach forward, they're really extending their stomach. It's just like us, right? I don't know if you guys, when your stomach hurts, you want to be doubled over, right? You want to be bent over. You don't want to be standing up tall. That hurts more. So if you think about it from our perspective, it's really very similar. So, and I'm sure there are other supplements that work out there as well, but as far as I know, those are the only 2 that actually have peer-reviewed studies that say, hey, this really helps keep it away. So does anybody have any questions for me?
I don't know and we've got a few people on here. If you guys have any questions about ulcers or products, let us know. The treatment that you use for the ulcers, you need to get through your veterinarian.
Right.
So if you're suspecting that your horse has ulcers, if you're seeing some of these symptoms that Kristen's talked about, if you want to know more about those symptoms, or you have some symptoms that are kind of like that, feel free to reach out and comment under this video on our page, and we will certainly get back to you. If we don't know it, we will research it. But if you suspect that your horse might have ulcers based on some of these symptoms that we've shared with you, please, your next step would be to call your veterinarian and
Absolutely.
see about getting a prescription and getting them on that. I will keep you guys updated with RC and how he's doing, and how, if some of these symptoms that, I've just kind of gotten used to. One of the other things when Kristen and I were talking about today, after my lesson with him, was that RC has always struggled to stride out. You know, when he's in a walk, dog just puked on the carpet. Wonderful. Um, when he when he's at a walk and I try to get him to do an extended walk, he'd rather trot. Got a trot and I ask him for an extended trot, he'd rather give me a canter. And I thought he was being obstinate, or I just didn't know what I was doing. But we were beginning to realize that that is again a symptom that he's possibly treating. Carolyn says, name hind gut ulcer treatment or name of medicine.
Sucralfate.
Sucralfate. So that is SURCLAFATA. Again, it's another veterinary medical medication. You'd need to talk to your veterinarian. But yeah, we use that a lot in humans, dogs. I don't know. I think we've actually been known to use it in cats too. But we definitely use it in dogs and horses. It's great, coats the stomach. The thing that's tricky about that medication is that it prevents absorption. So you have to make sure that you give it a certain amount of time, either pre-feeding or post-feeding. Otherwise, they're not getting the nutrition from their food. Carolyn, did that answer your question? What else did I miss about checking with your veterinarian? Depending on the severity of it, will depend, what your vet wants to do. Ulcers are so common in horses these days that veterinarians are pretty good about taking your information, doing a physical exam, which is if your horse hasn't been seen within the last year, that's required by law to get a prescription medication. But ulcers are so common that they're pretty quick to respond. And if they don't respond to their medication, then start talking endoscopes.
Yep.
To get it down in there and see what's going on.
And those aren't as expensive as you might think. I had one done just recently and it was about $800. So, I mean, not to say that that's cheap, but just so people think it's not like in the several $1,000 range, because it might sound like it's going to be astronomical when you talk about a camera going down. And that's because it's becoming more routine. So,
yeah. So, some really key points is if you are seeing any of these symptoms, please reach out to your veterinarian. If you have any more questions about symptoms that you're seeing, please reach out to us or your veterinarian. We are not veterinarians. We are just passionate horsewomen who have, between the two of us, a ton of experience. And we are here to help all of you guys learn as much as you want to learn. Veterinarian is the go-to person. We live stressful lives. One of the reasons we love our horses is because they can make time stand still. And for the time that we're with them, they can make us forget about everything else going on in our lives. They're energetic beings. That's why they are so reactive to storms. That's why they're so reactive to, you can have a horse on one side of the property and a horse going through something else on the opposite side of the property, and that horse is reacting because they are so sensitive to energy and what's going on in their environment. So we have to remember that if we're stressed and we're worried and we're hurried and we're not taking the time to breathe and be with them and be mindful of how we're behaving around them, they absorb that stress. And like Kristen pointed out about RC, my main squeeze, he's really good at I struggle with that word, compartmentalizing his emotions. He just holds it in and then has little spouts of, explosion. And I thought it was him, but I think he just tries to hold it all in so that he doesn't, you know, he tries to be the best boy he can be for me. So, you know, when you go to work and you got those employees that are really hard to handle, or the customers that are really hard to handle, and they create stress in us, we can do the same thing to our horses. So I'm not telling you you're causing ulcers in your horse, but I'm telling you that we can be a contributor. And I also that we can cause ulcers on our horses. If it's all work and no fun, that creates ulcers in horses like it does in humans. Don't pay attention to their nutritional needs. Like Kristen said, you know, give them something to eat before you put them in the trailer, before you stress them out, before you do a workout. Protect that gut, because they can't tell us, hey, I'm super hungry and my stomach hurts. They act out. So kind of the only other thing that I really wanted to add on to that is, you know, by us taking responsibility for who we are and where we are emotionally when we're around our horses, we could help them a lot. Get over ulcers and prevent their ulcers.
Definitely.
Anything else, Kristen?
I don't think so. I'm sure I'll think of something later and go, gosh, why didn't I mention that?
Then we'll have a part 2.
Yeah.
So a really, really powerful topic, you guys, something that is a real issue in the horse world these days. It's up there in probably the top 10 issues, medical issues with horses, common issues.
Yeah, and it really could be a lifesaver for you guys, you know, and you know, just know that it really could be. So, you know, some people might look at the treatment and go, gosh, you know, it's an expensive treatment, but the repercussions of not treating it are much worse. So, because, you know, you could lose your horse, you know, because it causes gastric ulcers as well as impaction colics.
Another thing we didn't add on to that, Kristen, is too many parasites. Too many parasites can add to ulcers. Another thing is, some people will go, oh, my horse is like 1,000 pounds. I'm just going to give him the 1,200 pound dose. Well, that medication has been tested and proven that there's an overdosing load, right? So, are we going to kill our horse if we give him a whole syringe? No. But let me tell you what happened to me. This is a great example. I just vaccinated and dewormed all my horses this weekend. And I've got horses anywhere from 600 to 1,200 pounds. And so I measure out all my syringe doses for my dewormer. I was using a new dewormer. I'm not going to say the name. I've used it before in the past, but I had just ordered these. We have a veterinary practice, so I ordered them from our supplier. I dialed them all in correctly. I cinched them all down super tight at the correct doses. Go outside to give my 900-pound horse his medication, and he gets the whole syringe. The stopper didn't work. And I'm like, what the heck? You know, and I have that moment of, oh my God. Now, is that going to kill my horse? No. But is that harder and more challenging on his gastric, his stomach? Yeah. So then I check all my syringes again to make sure I've cinched them all down tight. Maybe I didn't do it. Nope, they're all tight. Can't move them up, can't move them down. Go to give an 800-pound horse's syringe of dewormer. Again, the whole thing. So finally what I had to do was dial down the extra dose of those syringes and squirt it out so that I knew that each horse was getting the right amount. Because is that going to get my horses ulcers this one time? Most likely not. Am I watching those horses to make sure this week they don't get excess diarrhea, they don't feel lethargic, they're not acting a little off? Absolutely. But if we just get in the habit of, oh, well, we can give them the whole syringe even if they're not 1,200 pounds, no, that in and of itself can create ulcers because it's a medication. So real life experience here, you guys. It was frustrating. It was very frustrating.
Makes
So
sense.
yeah, crazy, right?
I know. God.
It was-
It's always something.
There was a whole box of dewormer, so it was 12 tubes, and it's like I got a whole defective box of plunger.
Great.
What are you gonna do?
I know.
All right, you guys. Kristen, do you have anything else?
No, I don't think so. Thanks, guys, for joining in.
Yes, and remember we're here every Thursday night, 6:15. If you guys have any topics you'd like to talk about or know more about, please send us a message on our synergistic page. Make a comment. We'll address it. And for now, I'm going to go feed my herd because they're probably ready for dinner.
Yep.
You guys all had a great week, and you're looking forward to the weekend coming up.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
All right, we'll talk to you later, guys.
Okay, bye.
Bye for now.